Welcome friends to another r/I-don't-work-here-lady video. One thing that is awesome and isn't any work at all is hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below. That said, our first story of the day is by Wanderlock. I do work here, but also I live here, and this isn't Petsmart, lady. Recently, I've begun a dog walking and pet sitting business that I run out of my house with express permission from my landlord. I've worked with animals for years, and I'm grateful to finally be able to do it for a halfway decent living. That being said, I've been much busier than I anticipated, and as such, I've been a little stressed about overextending myself. I even had a nightmare about forgetting that I had to watch a dog, and the dog was left alone at their house for several days. Even though it was just a nightmare, this prompted me to get more serious about my organization and scheduling so I wouldn't miss anything. Nowadays, my schedule is rock solid and I've been super on top of it. I only say that so you guys can understand the immense confusion I felt when my doorbell rang at 2 p.m. on Monday and I heard a dog barking outside. I get my dogs calmed down and answer the door. On my doorstep is an elderly woman, maybe 80 years old, holding a very cute West Highland Terrier. For anyone not familiar, they're the dog on the Caesar food package. I'm honestly so confused by her being there that my mouth doesn't form words. I just sort of stand there, opening and closing my mouth like a fish out of water, while my brain's just screaming, "You forgot! You forgot!" After a moment, she graciously saves me from myself and talks first. I'll refer to her as Little Old Lady. Little Old Lady says, "Hello, I'm Little Old Lady and I'm here to drop my dog off for boarding." At this point, I'm almost positive that my nightmares have literally come true and I've straight up deleted a dog from my short-term memory. But as I'm racking my brain, I can't remember ever seeing this dog or woman before. I say, "Hi, who is this little guy?" She says, "This is Chico. I was hoping to leave him with you for the weekend while I visit my grandson." Okay, hoping, that's an interesting word. Now I'm less anxious but more confused. I say, "Okay, have we spoken about Chico before?" She says, "Oh no, but your neighbor Laura said you watch dogs, so I just brought him over." Okay, now this is making more sense. Laura was my previous neighbor who had recently moved out. I'd watched her dogs dozens of times and she was always very kind to give my name out to people who were looking for dog sitters. Sometimes, however, she did treat me as on call in the sense that she would call me as she was pulling out of her driveway to tell me she was leaving for the weekend and I would need to watch the dogs. She would play it off like she was so frazzled and forgot, but it started to get old after the third or fourth time. At this point, I have a little old lady with her energetic dog on my porch and still more questions than answers, so I invite her in while I try to get to the bottom of it. Come to find out, Little Old Lady was a friend of Laura's mother, whom I had never met. Laura had a couple of my business cards at her house, and apparently the last time her mother was visiting, she took a couple of them to give to her friends. Apparently, Laura inherited her entitlement from her mother, as her mother told Little Old Lady I was available anytime for dog sitting. Literally anytime. Worse yet, because Laura was my next door neighbor, Laura's mom figured out my address and gave it to Little Old Lady. Because of that behavior, Little Old Lady had the impression that I was a dog boarding facility, and she was just as confused as I was to arrive at a normal-looking house. After we got it all explained, Little Old Lady and I had a pretty big laugh about it. She was super apologetic and sweet, but I knew it really wasn't her fault, so there was no harm done from her. She was just a sweet old lady who got a little confused. Unfortunately, because I was already booked, I couldn't watch Chico. But good news, Little Old Lady determined she could just visit her grandson this weekend, and I went ahead and booked it for her. Chico and my dogs had plenty of time to socialize while Little Old Lady and I were chatting, and they were becoming fast friends. I think I may have just fallen backwards into a great client. Still, I was a little miffed, so I called Laura to please ask her mother to not tell people that they can just come by anytime. Laura was legitimately confused as to why it was an issue. After a few minutes of going around in circles, I simply said I can't watch any dogs that I don't know, and left it at that. While I wish that was the end of it, 2 days later, Wednesday, yesterday at the time of this post, Laura called me to tell me she had just left her house and could I please watch the dogs? I gently remind her that she had just moved 3 hours away and I was no longer her neighbor. She just gave a half-hearted, "Oh," and hung up. God bless her. Are any of you guys as concerned as I am for Laura's dog now? Like, who are they going to get to watch this dog? Because Obviously, they walk out on that dog a little bit too much. Is that just me? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by TLittle197. I'm literally in uniform. So I just got home and had this wonderful exchange. I'm in the US Navy, and I came home to let the maintenance man into my apartment to work on something. He finishes his work and I wasn't gonna leave him unattended to go change, but I did take my blouse off to cool off. I see him out and remember that my lock was sticking and it was hard to get the key in. Rather than call him back over to fix it, I remember I have some gun oil and run back inside to grab it, return to my door, spritz, tested with a key, mission accomplished. As I'm about to go back inside, I hear the dreaded, "Hey you, come here!" Knowing what's coming, I think, great, now I have to deal with this. So I turn around to be greeted by, you guessed it, Karen, haircut and all. The following is a summary of the exchange. Karen says, "What are you doing?" I say, "Fixing the lock, it was sticking so I'm just lubing it up." She says, "Exactly, why aren't you fixing mine?" I say, "Excuse," Karen jumps in, "Just shut up, get over here and fix my lock. I put in a maintenance request 2 days ago." Me, already not having any of this, said no. Karen says, "Excuse me? How dare you? I'll have you know I'm friends with the office ladies and your boss. I can get you fired for laziness." I say, "I doubt that." She says, "It's true. Now fix this lock or I'll have your job." I say, "No, I don't work here, idiot. I'm literally wearing my Navy uniform. I owe you nothing, and I'm going to go back inside now." The Karen says, Well, you still should have helped me." I say, "Maybe if you had been polite about it, I would have, but certainly not now. I'm going inside and you can mess off, pound sand, and kick rocks in whichever order you feel like." I shut the door 5 minutes ago, and she's still screaming and pounding on my door. Music. Some people in the comments suggested this, and I wholeheartedly agree with them. Try and record some of that Karen's behavior when they're acting like that, because you never know what might happen involving the owners of the apartment and how they can possibly frame you in one way or another. You never know. Cover your butt when you have to live with crazy neighbors. This next story is by Poop Poster 9000. High-vis shirt, mucking boots, and smells like death? Must be an employee. Last week, I swung by a sporting goods store after my shift. Despite brushing off like 30 times, I still have sand falling off with every step. My hair and beard's a scraggly mess. There was even a bit of sand still on my face that I didn't notice at the time, but screw it. I wanted a pair of hiking boots. Something to note, my sense of smell is quite muted. Kind of a blessing given all the sewer work I do. I also sweat like a promiscuous person in church with even the slightest bit of duress. And if it's any hotter than the depths of my cold black heart, I'm not talking my armpits get wet, I am talking it looked and felt like I pissed my pants 5 minutes ago, but now all my clothes are equally soaked so it doesn't matter kind of sweaty. This combo leads to a lot of embarrassment as I usually don't realize how bad I smell. So picture this, some 300-pound man in a high-visibility city uniform, leaving behind a light trail of sand and smelling like corpse juice and disappointment, walking past you and disappearing into the shoe section. Later on, you notice him mutter curses under his breath, fiddling with his left boot while inadvertently shaking sand everywhere in the process. Not even 2 minutes go by, and you have an inquiry about something in the back. Who do you ask? An employee in a marked, specifically colored uniform, or someone that is built like aged butter with pubes stuck to it and probably smelled like that too? Well, some middle-aged guy thought Pube Butter Man was an employee. It took a full 15 seconds for him to realize that I wasn't an employee, apologized, then walked off to the sports section with a look that almost made me want to write a joke about him going to look for really sturdy jump ropes. I appreciate OP's commitment in this story to overselling their self-deprecation, just like unabashedly going ham on really putting themselves down for some reason. The bottom line is it's definitely the high-vis jacket. I have friends who work in jobs where they wear high-vis jackets, and after work or maybe on a break, they'll go to a store and they have had multiple occasions where it happens like this, just because they look like some kind of worker with the high-vis jacket. Our next story is by Formo Mormo, Head Start Karen. Just had a unique for me I don't work here lady experience. I was at the Mart of Wall, finished stuffing my cart with a large grocery list and headed to the checkouts. They only had 2-man registers with at least 5 carts waiting for each one, so I headed to the self-checkout area where they have 2 checkouts with belts for larger orders. Luckily, someone was just finishing paying, so I was able to walk right up and start filling the belt. After 7 years on the business side of a register, 4 at the Mart of Wall, I'm faster than almost every cashier at this store, so I get down to business and start ringing up as fast as I can. Enter our Karen. On the other side of the register is the line for the other large order self-checkout, so I'm facing those waiting in line. I'm pushing through my produce when I start hearing ahem and excuse me in a high-pitched voice repeatedly. I look up, and in the seat of the cart opposite me is a 2 to 3-year-old girl dressed way too good for this place. She's waving at me and desperately trying to get my attention. She keeps clearing her throat and repeating, "Excuse me, we need some help," and my favorite, "Look at me." Her father, dressed way more normally for the store, keeps trying to get her to stop and explains that I'm just a customer, but she's not having it, and he's having a hard time not laughing. My scanning faltered a bit as I muffled my own laughter, but I soldiered and she became more agitated. She even started hitting the shelf on the other side to get my attention. I finally finished my order, and they had barely advanced. As I finished paying, I greeted her with a friendly, "Hello," grabbed my receipt, and left. I could hear her having a fit as I walked out of the store. I feel for that father. He has a handful, and it's only going to get worse. So I feel like the implication you're supposed to assume from this story is 2 to 3-year-old daughter, only with the dad, dressed way differently from the dad and acts way differently than the dad. Feels like there's only one place it can all be imprinted from, right? If the implication is true, then I do feel bad for the dad as well. But also, in the weirdest sense, I kind of understand more, if you get what I mean. This next story is by Here, Queer and Great. Woman in Barnes & Noble mistakes me for an employee, and we both have a good laugh about it. More often than not, the stories on this subreddit are about entitled people who mistake the OPs for employees. Well, I actually have a story that fits on here, but is not about an entitled Karen or Kevin. Back in December of 2019, my father picked me up from work and took me to the mall so we could meet up with my mother, my sister, and her friend. This mall had a Barnes & Noble in it. I love Barnes & Noble, so I decided to look around and see if there was anything cool there. I was wearing my work uniform at the time since I had just gotten off work and Dad took me straight to the mall. As I was standing around, a 30-something-year-old woman came up to me and asked, "Excuse me, do you know if you have such and such book?" I was perplexed. Then it dawned on me, I was wearing my work uniform, name tag and everything. I simply told her, ma'am, I don't work here." After that misunderstanding was cleared up, we had a good laugh about it and she apologized for the misunderstanding. To which I told her there was really no reason to apologize. It'll be 2 years since that happened in December, and it's still one of my favorite stories to tell when I'm at a family gathering. I think something I really like about I Don't Work Here Lady stories is even the most mildest ones, like most people would probably say this was a pretty basic experience. All these stories, no matter how serious or how far they go, are always really memorable when you experience it. That moment of, wait, they actually think I work here. There's just something about it that makes it really stick with you, like, why did they think this? And you also just want to tell people about it. And our final story of the day is by Conflict Time. Woman mistakes me for hotel employee twice in 2 days. Not a dramatic story, I'm more amused that this happened twice in as many days. I've been staying at a hotel this week for a business trip. I wrapped up my client visit yesterday and returned to the hotel. As I entered the lobby, I saw a woman standing at the check-in desk. I walked towards the elevators when I heard her yell, "Excuse me." I turned around and noticed her staring right at me. I was confused and she gestured around saying, "I've been waiting, can someone check me in?" I was dressed in business casual attire, so it wasn't too far of a stretch that she would assume I worked there. Before I could answer, an actual hotel employee ran out and said she would be able to help her. I continued to the elevator not thinking much of it. This morning, I went down to the lobby area to grab some breakfast. Again, I was dressed presentably for a client visit. As I was grabbing some coffee, I noticed the same woman from yesterday at the cereal station. She made eye contact and started pointing at something. I didn't respond, so she called out, "The milk is empty." I realized she again mistook me for an employee. I replied, "Oh, sorry, I don't work here. You helped me yesterday." She wasn't exactly aggressive, she seemed more confused than anything. She probably recognized me but misplaced me. I just calmly explained that, no, I did not, and I'm also a guest at the hotel. She didn't say anything back, so I took the opportunity to leave because it was a little awkward. This happens to me a lot. I guess I inherently have a customer service vibe. The amount of times I hear people say stuff like this, I'm beginning to think there actually is some kind of customer service vibe that a select few people give off or something, I don't know. Maybe when you're dressed up nicely or semi-nicely, you just have the right look. You just look like the kind of person that does work there or is a manager or something, I don't know. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.